Something weird just happened. I heard a girl's voice, clear as day. It wasn't coming from a video game, or a dream. I was wide awake. The voice was definitely in my head, and it said, "The daily quest has arrived." I could have sworn I was just going about my normal day. But then I heard that voice, loud and clear. A message popped up in front of me, floating in midair. No way, I thought. It can't be the same one again. I hesitated for a moment before opening it, hoping for the best. Then I heard a ping, and the message appeared, daily quest, strength training. It said I had to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and run 10 kilometers. And next to each task, it said incomplete with a big 0. There was also a warning. If I didn't finish all these tasks, I would get in trouble. As soon as I saw this, I let out a frustrated yell. Seriously, how many times do I have to do this? I'm Jin-Woo Sung, an E-rank hunter, which is the lowest rank possible. The title hunter stuck with Jin-Woo wherever he went. But here's the thing, he wasn't really any stronger than a normal person. He was just a bit tougher and healed a tiny bit faster. That's it. Because of this, Jin-Woo was always getting hurt. He had bruises, cuts, and broken bones all the time. In fact, he had even come close to dying several times. It's no surprise that being a hunter wasn't exactly Jin-Woo's dream job. Being a hunter was a tough job. People often looked down on Jin-Woo, and the pay wasn't great. The work was also super dangerous. If it weren't for the good health insurance from the Hunters Association, he would have quit right away. But Jin-Woo had a big reason to keep going. His mom's hospital bills, they cost a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of won every month. Since Jin-Woo didn't have any other skills that could get him a job, being a hunter was his only way to pay those bills. He felt like he had no choice. That's why he joined the association's raid on that fateful day. Most hunters in the area knew each other pretty well, because they all worked together whenever a gate opened. The first people to arrive started chatting over cups of coffee provided by an employee. "Hey Kim, over here," someone called out. Kim walked over and said, "Oh, Park. It's been a while. I thought you quit." Park smiled and replied, "It turns out my wife is pregnant with our second child." Kim burst out laughing and said, "Haha. Well, as hunters we know that raids are the way to make some big money." Park chuckled along with Kim, looking a bit embarrassed. Then he asked Kim a question. "So why hasn't the association been calling on hunters lately? Is it because there aren't enough gates to explore?" "No way," came the reply. "It's just that the guilds are working way harder than the association right now. When there's a lot of money involved, they get super motivated. But this raid should be okay, since the association set it up, right?" Park looked around nervously as his worries started to grow. Usually when guilds aren't involved, it means the payoff won't be huge. And most of the time, that means the gate is pretty low ranking. But here's the thing, nothing is ever 100% guaranteed. Park wasn't alone in feeling uneasy. Other hunters were getting nervous too. Kim tried to stall by taking a sip of his coffee. But then he spotted someone he knew in the distance. He waved enthusiastically and shouted, "Hey, Sung. Over here." The others' faces lit up when they saw who was approaching. "Hello everyone," said Jin-Woo Sung with a smile as he walked towards them. Jin-Woo smiled back at Kim's friendly hello as he walked by. As soon as Jin-Woo was out of hearing range, Kim turned to Park with a big grin on his face. "Jin-Woo Sung is here," Kim said. "That means we're good to go." Park's eyes got really wide, and he leaned in close to Kim. "Wait, is Jin-Woo that strong?" he asked. Kim chuckled and said, "I guess you don't know who he is." Jin-Woo Sung started his career soon after you left the scene. He's super famous, everyone knows him. But if he's really that strong, it's weird that he works with the association. You'd think he'd be part of a big guild or work on his own. Kim's smile disappeared, and he gave Park a funny look. "Do you know what people call Jin-Woo?" he asked. Park shrugged. "How would I know that?" "Come on, just say it already," someone exclaimed. "You're talking about the weakest hunter of all mankind." There was a pause before another person spoke up. "Wait, the weakest? Not the ultimate hunter?" Someone chuckled and said, "No way. That's Jongin Choi, the top-ranked hunter. The guy we're talking about is Sung, also known as the weakest hunter. He's probably the worst hunter in all of Korea." Park scrunched up his face in confusion. "What? That doesn't make sense," he said. "If Jin-Woo was really that weak, why had everyone been so excited to see him?" The other hunters were counting on Jin-Woo to watch their backs in case things got crazy. But Park just didn't get why everyone was being so calm about it. Kim noticed Park's confused face and gave him a playful nudge. Dude, any mission with Jin-Woo is a breeze, he said with a grin. The association always gives him easy jobs. They don't want to be responsible if something happens to him. Park's worried look started to fade, and he finally began to relax. Park's wife was super worried. It had been a while since his last raid, and she was getting anxious. Park was nervous too, but then Kim spoke up. Hey, don't worry, Kim said with a calm smile. I heard something that might make you feel better. He leaned in and whispered. Rumor has it, Sung got hurt really badly in an E-rank 8. He was in the hospital for a whole week. Park's eyes widened in surprise. A hunter got hurt in an E-rank 8. He asked, shocked. Kim nodded. Yeah, and you know what's even crazier? The association didn't think it was a big deal, so they didn't even send a healer with him. Park's wife gasped. So he was really hurt and had to stay in the hospital for a week. Kim gave Park a stern look. Shush. Not so loud, she whispered. Park had burst out laughing, and Kim was worried they'd get caught. Oops, sorry, Park said, trying to stifle a grin. He glanced over at Jin-Woo, who seemed too far away to have heard them, but he was wrong. Jin-Woo's ears had picked up every sound. He smiled to himself, looking all bitter and stuff. Meanwhile, he pretended like he hadn't noticed Kim and Park staring at him. Bah ha ha ha. Park laughed again, but this time more quietly. Little did they know, Jin-Woo had heard everything. Jin-Woo hated his super sharp hearing at times like these. The raid wasn't about to start yet, and he was getting impatient. Was he too early? He looked around for something to do, but nothing caught his eye. So he headed to the coffee shop. Can I get a cup? He asked. The person behind the counter looked frazzled. Oh, Hunter Sung, I'm so sorry. We just ran out of coffee. Jin-Woo didn't say a word. He stepped back outside into the cold winter air, and the wind stung his nose. Jin-Woo rubbed the bad coffee with his finger. It was one of those days where everything was going wrong. Even his coffee was a letdown. Joo-hee Lee, a beautiful healer, looked at him with disappointment. Why do you keep being a hunter? She asked. Jin-Woo hung his head and said, I'm sorry, but Joo-hee wasn't looking for an apology. She was still frowning as she cast a healing spell on him. I didn't ask you that so you could say sorry, she said. I'm worried about you, and that's why I asked. If you keep going at it like this, you're going to get hurt really badly someday. Jin-Woo looked past Joo-hee's shoulder and saw his teammates fighting. They were standing in front of a gate, which was like a doorway to a dungeon. This dungeon was rank D, which wasn't super tough. Lots of hunters, over a dozen, were battling magic beasts inside, and they were handling it easily. Being an E-rank hunter was tough for Jin-Woo. Usually healers stayed in the back and helped those who got hurt. But Jin-Woo was famous among healers for getting injured all the time. Jo-hee asked him carefully. Why don't you just quit? Jin-Woo shook his head strongly. He didn't want anyone to know his secrets. This is what I love to do, he said. Jin-Woo loved his hobby so much that he couldn't imagine life without it. I'd probably be bored to death if I didn't do this, he said with a grin. But Jo-hee wasn't having it. Well, indulge in your hobby too much, and your next raid will be in the afterlife. She scolded. Jin-Woo was caught off guard and burst out laughing. Jo-hee's expression turned serious. Aha, don't laugh. You'll open your wound. But Jin-Woo couldn't stop giggling. Who talks like that these days? He chuckled. Jo-hee just rolled her eyes and said, Who do you think? Check out Mr. Kim, all the way over there, said one of them. Another person chimed in. Ugh, that old guy. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo was finishing up his treatment. But it was already too late for him to join in on the action. The raid was almost over. Jin-Woo's face fell, as he thought about how badly his day had gone. He had only managed to defeat one monster, and it wasn't even a strong one, just an E-rank beast. To make matters worse, all he got from it was a weak E-rank essence stone, which he now held in his hand. Imagine risking your life for a reward that's barely worth it. For Jin-Woo, an E-rank hunter, the essence stone from a magic beast was only worth less than 100,000 won. It wasn't much considering the danger he faced. But things got even more interesting when you compared it to what you could get from a stronger beast. An essence stone from a C-rank magic beast could be worth over 10 million won. That's a huge difference. The problem was Jin-Woo wasn't strong enough to take on a C-rank beast. Just as he was thinking about this, someone suddenly shouted out to the group. Huh? Whoa, there's another way in. The hunters nearby gathered around. Excited. It's really here, they said, amazed. Just like the first hunter had said, a secret entrance to another dungeon was hidden. Hunter Song, a seasoned explorer with 10 years of experience under his belt, stared at the entrance in awe. His rugged hair showed he'd been through a lot. A double dungeon. I've heard of them, but I never thought they were real, he said, eyes wide with wonder. The cave was dark, making it hard to see very far inside. Song threw a fire spell into the cave, and it lit up the whole place. The flame shot through the passage, making everything visible for a moment, but the passage seemed to go on forever. Eventually the flame started to fade, fell to the ground, and sparked a few times before dying out. The cave was dark again. Song, who was kind of in charge, called out, "Hey, everyone, gather around." He wanted all the hunters to come together so they could figure out what to do next. Jin-Woo's treatment was finally done, and he joined the group along with Jo-hee. Song looked around at his friends as he started talking. "You all know how this works," he said. "A gate won't close until we beat the boss. We've cleared this area, but the gate is still open, so I think the boss must be inside." He pointed to the entrance of the hidden dungeon. The others looked at each other and nodded. They agreed with Song. There was no other way to see it. Song kept talking. "We're supposed to tell the association about this and wait for them to decide what to do. But if we do that, other hunters might show up and steal our catch before we can do anything." Everyone's faces turned serious, their expressions toughening at the thought of losing out on the prize. Park looked really upset about the idea of leaving, without a big win. His wife was having a baby, and they needed the money to pay for all the expensive medical bills that come with it. If they didn't get paid well, it wouldn't be worth risking his life to explore this dungeon. "I don't want to leave without beating the boss," he said. "What do you guys think?" Everyone was quiet, thinking about what he said. No one knew what would happen if they stayed, and no one's safety could be guaranteed. But this was a pretty easy dungeon, so maybe it was worth a shot. Song cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. "We should vote on this," he said. "There are 17 of us, so we can make a decision together. Once we decide, that's it. No changing our minds." Everyone nodded in agreement. Not a single person objected to Song's idea. With a confident smile, Song raised his hand and said, "I'm going into the hidden dungeon." As Park raised his hand, others did the same. "Me too," they said. "I vote for going in." Kim and other hunters agreed with him, but not everyone was on board. Some people shouted, "Let's not go in." Others suggested, "Shouldn't we wait to see what the association decides?" The votes were evenly split, with each side having just as many supporters. The voting continued until only 2 people were left, Jin-Woo and Jo-hee. Jo-hee looked at Song with sorry eyes, and bowed her head. "I'm sorry," she said, deciding not to go in. Her vote made the tally 8-4 and 8 against. A perfect tie. It all came down to a tie. Jin-Woo hesitated, and Song turned to him directly. "What about you, Sung?" Jin-Woo's eyes locked onto the E-rank essence stone in his hand, his grip tightening. He glanced at Jo-hee standing beside him, but she just shook her head. She looked really unsure about what was happening. Jin-Woo felt uneasy too. Normally he wouldn't take a risk like this. He didn't have the skills or the bravery for it. But he had something that motivated him. His sister was going to college soon. The problem was Jin-Woo didn't have any money saved up. At 24 years old he should be more stable, but his bank account was almost empty. He had given up on college because it was too expensive. Now he wanted to make sure his sister didn't miss out like he did. The problem was he was broke. All he had in his pockets was lint. Park wasn't the only one who desperately needed some cash. Just then Jin-Woo's hand shot up. "I'm in too," he exclaimed. The person sitting next to him let out a small sigh. As they looked ahead, they saw a tunnel that seemed to go on forever. The strongest hunters, including Song, took the lead. Song held up a small flame to light their way, carefully cradling it in his hand. Kim walked beside him, looking concerned. "Aren't we going too far in? We should think about heading back soon," Song asked. "How long have we been walking?" Kim checked his watch and replied, "About 40 minutes. Song thought for a moment before answering. "The gates will close an hour after we defeat the boss, so we still have around 20 minutes left." Kim warned, "If we don't find the boss by then, we should leave." Song agreed with a silent nod, and jerked his thumb back over his shoulder. "Stay close behind me, Kim," a voice warned. "It's dark up ahead." Kim stared at the small flame, then pulled out his special phone, and turned on the flashlight app. Suddenly the road ahead was filled with light. Song looked back and forth between the flame and the phone light, then started rummaging through his pockets without saying a word. Bringing up the rear of the group were Jin-Woo, who was badly hurt, and Jin-Woo. He wasn't very good at fighting. Jin-Woo rubbed the back of his neck, looking a bit uncomfortable. Jin-Woo said sorry, but he wasn't really sure what for. For what? Someone asked him. He explained, for making you come with us. The person told him not to worry, that they were fine, but Jin-Woo didn't believe it. He sneaked a peek at Joo-hee's face, and she looked pretty upset. He fidgeted a bit, then tried talking to her again. Are you really okay? He asked. Joo-hee spun around, her eyes flashing with emotion. Of course not, she exclaimed. What's wrong with you? You barely escaped with your life last time. If that beast had struck just a little higher, it would have hit your heart. And don't forget about the wounds on your wrist and thigh healing. You was no easy task. Now you want to run into another dungeon without knowing what dangers are lurking inside. She talked so fast that he just stood there staring at her in shock, trying to keep up with her words. Joo-hee was totally right about everything. She's one of the few B-rank healers in the Hunters Association, and her amazing skills have made a huge difference in Jin-Woo's life. Without her help, he would have had a tough time doing everyday things. Looking back, Joo-hee has done so much for him. It's already rare to find hunters who are healers, but Joo-hee is especially talented. She was also super strong, a B rank, so whenever a gate opened up, the association would ask her to help heal hunters. And guess what? Jin-Woo always seemed to end up sitting in front of her, after almost every raid he went on. She'd say things like, that has to hurt, just hang in there a bit longer. He'd reply, you look familiar. Were you the one who helped me last time? Then she'd ask, did you get hurt again? They kept running into each other and she'd say, we meet up a lot, don't we? Finally, she said, you're Jin-Woo, right? Are you okay with this? Someone asked, sounding unsure. Another person spoke up, maybe being a hunter isn't for you. Then a familiar voice said, it's you again. A healer stepped forward and said, give me your arm please. No, the other one. This side just needs a bandage. Show me the side with the break. Jin-Woo felt bad about all the trouble he had caused. He looked down feeling sorry for himself. But then Joo-hee's expression changed when she saw how sad Jin-Woo looked. She seemed to feel bad for yelling at him. Are you really sorry? She asked. Jin-Woo nodded. Yes, Joo-hee thought for a moment, then glanced at Jin-Woo and smiled slightly, looking a little shy. Joo-hee said with a sly smile, if you're really sorry, why don't you take me out for dinner? This caught him off guard. He stared at her, surprised by the mischievous glint in her eye. It was a look that reminded him of a teenager, but Joo-hee was a bit older than that. She was a young woman, just barely into her 20s. In fact, she had mentioned that she would be turning 21 next year. Imagine Joo-hee with a short bob and a school uniform. She could easily pass as a high school student. Jin-Woo's face turned bright red as he pictured her in a schoolgirl outfit. Joo-hee puffed out her cheeks, looking annoyed that Jin-Woo wasn't saying anything. So you don't want to eat with me? She asked. Just then, a big commotion broke out at the front of the group. People started shouting, we're here. It's the boss's lair. Jin-Woo and Joo-hee turned to see what was going on. That's when they saw two huge doors blocking their way. The other hunters were hanging out in front of the cave, looking pretty confused. Doors at the back of a cave. Someone asked, have you ever seen a lair with doors before? Another hunter chimed in. This is a total first, someone else said, sounding unsure. The group started to get nervous, whispering to each other about how this could be really bad news. They were all thinking the same thing. If they went inside, they might not make it out alive. Being too careful wouldn't get the job done, but being too reckless wouldn't work either. Song thought that playing it too safe was the bigger problem. Who wants to go home with nothing? He asked. He put his hand on a door and said, if you're okay with that, then go ahead, but I'm going in, even if I have to do it alone. Song had been a hunter for 10 years, and had earned a C rank, which meant he was pretty skilled at what he did. This old guy was really powerful, and if he was younger, he could have worked for a top-notch guild. But even though he's older, he still has a confident air about him that makes everyone feel more at ease. The hunters started talking among themselves, remembering rumors they'd heard about double dungeons. I've heard those places are filled with amazing treasures, one of them said. Another hunter chimed in. I know a mid-sized guild that got super rich after finding one. They all thought it sounded too good to be true. But what if it was real? What if the magic beasts inside were weak, like the D&E rank ones they'd already beaten? The hunters didn't want the old man to get all the treasure for himself. They had their own reasons for wanting it. One of them needed money for his wife's care after having a baby. Another had to pay tuition fees for his kid. And soon they'd all have to deal with higher rent. They were all on the same page, and Jin-Woo was determined too. I'm not leaving with just one lowly E-rank essence stone. I need to catch at least a D-rank beast. Or even another E-rank one will do. It doesn't have to be a magic beast. Either me strong creature will work. Or maybe I'll get lucky and find some kind of treasure. When we're in a dungeon, we always split any cool stuff we find equally among our party members. Fighting magic beasts was a whole different story. When you beat one, you gotta keep the essence stone as a prize, but only if you defeated it yourself. If things went well, Jin-Woo might be able to take a break for a bit. He swallowed hard, feeling a little nervous. Jo-hee noticed the determined look on his face and raised an eyebrow. You don't really look like someone who thinks hunting is just a hobby, she said. Jin-Woo shrugged. I mean, who puts their life on the line just to make some money? Jin-Woo said, you only do that as a hobby. Jo-hee gave him a weird look and asked, what? Just then, Song pushed the doors open. They creaked loudly. K-R-R-R. The doors swung back easily, like a secret mechanism had been triggered. With a loud thud, they opened up to a huge room inside. The hunters rushed in, eager to explore. Jin-Woo grabbed Jo-hee's wrist and pulled her along, saying, we should go too. Jo-hee's face turned pink as she followed him. As they entered the lair, torches on the walls suddenly lit up with a soft whooshing sound. Plush, the flames made the whole room bright and cozy. Jo-hee looked around in surprise, asking what? Who lit the torches? Someone asked, eyeing the flickering flames. The group stood frozen, taking in their eerie surroundings. I've never seen a dungeon like this, one of them whispered. Another hunter nodded in agreement. Something's different. As they looked around, they saw that the room was like an ancient temple. It reminded them of an old hidden sanctuary deep beneath the earth. Moss crawled out of cracks in the floor, walls, and even the ceiling. Some of the hunters took a step back, shivering. Why did I just get the chills? One of them asked. Doesn't it feel like someone's watching us? A few brave hunters broke away from the others to explore deeper into the room. Come on, stop talking nonsense. One of them said, let's finish what we came here for, and get out of here. But as they ventured further in, they realized just how massive the lair was. It stretched out before them, unbelievably huge. The ceiling arched up, forming a gigantic dome that seemed to swallow everything. It was huge, think several Olympic stadiums mashed together, or maybe even bigger. But despite its massive size, the space felt kinda cramped, and then it became clear why. People started to whisper in shock.
Is that? Someone stammered.
No way, that can't be the boss. On the far side of the room, an enormous statue sat on a throne that was almost as big as the statue itself. It looked like a god. The group's reactions were instant.
Oh hell no.
And whoa, filled the air. Jin-Woo's eyes widened as he stared at the massive figure. Suddenly an image popped into his head. The Statue of Liberty, but this was way bigger and more intimidating.